everybody. Welcome to C3 Films. Today we're doing yet another episode of It Wasn't That Good, and today we're talking about the first episode of She-Hulk. So if you haven't seen it yet, go ahead, watch it or not, then come back and watch our conversation. um, so I am Cheryl, and this is
Chris.
and let's get the ball rolling. So, what about She Hulk was bothering you so much? Because I feel like you've been really wanting to get this off your chest.
uh, it is. It is just the first episode of She-Hulk is just so mediocre. It's. I don't know, man. There's a couple of things that I kind of like. That just felt weird to me, and but some of them I know is like they're trying to do what they do in the comic. But one of the things that immediately struck me was the moment that she starts talking to us as the audience and starts talking about it being a lawyer show and everything. And because we haven't really seen that in Marvel from another character within the Marvel Cinematic Universe, like we've seen it from Deadpool in his own movie, but we haven't seen it from a character within the same cinematic universe as all these other characters that are intended to exist in their own universe. It just it just felt odd to me, and I do think that She-Hulk in the comics is self-aware. I think her and Deadpool are like two of the Marvel characters that constantly do talk to the reader. So I get that they're kind of trying to do a thing that they do in the comics, but it feels weird coming from She-Hulk. Like Deadpool, you kind of buy it because Deadpool's kind of ridiculous, and like the nature of the tone of that movie like kind of lends itself to him being able to talk to us, and you kind of just like roll with it. But because we're so accustomed to the stuff that happens in the MCU being it's like as if it is actually happening and not like it's a show, it just kind of it felt off to me. And then so when she would do it at various points in the episode, it would just like kind of just leave me feeling a little uncomfortable. Like it didn't feel right as like a style, and I don't know if that's just me.
No, it definitely threw me off too. I actually didn't know that the comics were that way, so it really bothered me at first. And then I was like, oh, well, okay, I guess if it's going to be, trying to stick to the comics more. But I think the difference between She Hulk breaking the fourth wall and Deadpool breaking the fourth wall is that Deadpool does it for comedic and
Mm-hmm.
very intentional, tactful, and purposeful reasons. But
Yeah.
for her, she did it in like really weird moments, like in places that didn't need to happen because basically we got like really spoon fed information at the beginning, and we really didn't need that. It could have just
Mm-hmm.
happened like any other, typical way that you make a show, and I think even just removing that bit would have made it a lot better.
Yeah, it's weird because like they start off the show with her like being a lawyer and people already knowing about like or the fact that she's Hulk and or that she's a She-Hulk, and they're like, "Hey, you can Hulk out," but we haven't seen anything yet. And it's almost like the writers were saying, "Okay, well, we're making a lawyer show, but we don't want you to think that it's a superhero show. So that's why we're going to start with the lawyer stuff, but we have to also show like the origin. So fine, I guess we'll go ahead and we'll show the origin to try to like get you interested." It's almost as if like they were worried that if they tried to tell the story in a linear normal way that people wouldn't like it. Um and so yeah, so it just kind of felt that writing choice felt odd to me. And the way that that was one thing that like just caught me off guard. They
Well, I
changed.
mean,
Yeah.
to add to that though, it's funny though because they say that this is a lawyer show, but there's literally nothing that happens in a lawyer way at all. So I thought that little bit at
That's
the beginning
true.
for the origin was only going to be like half of the episode
But it was the
tops.
entire episode.
Yeah, it was the entire episode. So I was like, but you just told me that this wasn't
Hmm.
going to be about this, but you made the whole first episode about this.
Yeah, exactly. And then it you get to the end of the episode, like the first end, not the after credits, where the person kind of just burst into the courtroom. And like so we had that and we don't know who that is, and I'm guessing, or I guess we'll find out in like future episodes. But that also felt weird because it's like, oh, so do do villains just burst into random courtrooms? Is this just happen to be a thing? Because we didn't have, and I'm pretty sure that the other episodes will address who this character is. I mean, the character's clearly like a superhero or whatever. They burst through a wall, but um, it just, for the context of the episode, we had nothing to attach for that, so it just felt random. And then it just felt like an excuse to force this person that just spent the entire episode being like, I'm not going to be a superhero, to have a kind of superhero moment. Which also, just on a brief side note, when she turned into the Hulk and then started fighting this supervillain, the first thing I thought to myself was, you actually don't know if this person can take a hit from you. Like, I know they broke through a wall, but that doesn't mean that they can take a hit from a Hulk that doesn't know how to hold back. So I was just like, how do you know that you're not gonna kill this woman? But that's a side point. Whatever. So that was just one thing I thought about.
Right? A plot hole. Yeah, but no, like, so I don't know really anything about She-Hulk. I didn't even know there was a She-Hulk comic.
Mm-hmm.
So from my perspective, what it seems like is like she's a character who is in denial about the show and herself being like a superhero. So
Mm-hmm.
like because she's in the courtroom and then some villain comes in and she turns into the Hulk and defeats that person. In my mind, I'm thinking, so the show is going to be about a woman who is a lawyer who is also a Hulk, is in denial about being a superhero and spends like the whole like a good amount of her beginnings just being in denial about being a hero, a superhero, and she's just going to keep getting dragged into superhero stuff while trying to be a lawyer and not being very successful at it. So that's what I feel like the show is going to be about, based off of the first episode and knowing nothing else.
Right, and it does seem like the episode is trying to reiterate that itself, because you have Banner talking to her about uh, merging the two lives and how it can be a challenge and stuff like that. There's some good stuff in this. Like, most of the episode is her with her cousin, and there's some good stuff in there, and then there's some stuff that just is kind of upsetting to me that's in there. But it does seem like the show is going to be about her trying to, basically her figuring out what Bruce said to her is actually true. But to go to the beginning of the episode again, real quick, the origin story of She-Hulk is normally that she's in a car crash and she gets a blood transfusion from her cousin Bruce Banner, and that's why she becomes the She-Hulk. So this one, they kind of just sped it up a little bit, like, which also why in certain places the episode kind of feels rushed, because even like this whole like training montage, like it kind of feels like it is very rushed, to the point of the detriment of character development. They're doing this whole thing where it almost feels like they're trying to rush her progression as the She-Hulk past all of like the development moments that she could have with her cousin, just so that they can get to the part of the show that they'd rather the show be about. So because of that, she catches on to everything like immediately. It takes her basically no time to learn and grow. And while I would not say that she's as bad as Ray, there's some of that energy that is kind of underneath the things that we're seeing with She-Hulk. But so anyway, but they do still get in a car crash in this episode, which is the same way as that she like ends up getting hurt in the original, but then she tries to save Bruce and then she gets his blood in her, and then that's why she like immediately turns. And I remember first thinking when I saw that, wait, it happens that instantly. But then I remember in the Hulk movie with Edward Norton, the one of the guys, you probably don't even remember this, but the guy that would become the villain called the Leader has Hulk's blood drip on top of his like a wound in his head, and then his head like immediately gets bigger. So I was like, okay, so there is a precedent set for how quickly the Hulk's blood kind of like infects your body.
Yeah, but then there's also the whole like comparison between. I guess they were really trying to nail in the fact that she's going to be completely different from Hulk.
Yeah.
Then they were really drilling that into your head. But I would agree about the fact that she doesn't necessarily have an arc because she's just already good at everything, and I kind of feel like we're getting a little bit of the female perspective here where we're like, we don't need a man to explain to us how to do something. It's basically, Bruce is mansplaining everything to her, or like Hulksplaining in this case. But I kind of get it. Like, if he's like he really is, he's right, being the only person who would know what she's going through. But she's not going through it. So it just makes me ask the question of whether or not like she really needed to have this whole origin story told, because it just seems like they wanted Mark Ruffalo to be in it, and they were just kind of making up reasons for him to be there.
Be there.
Just because we know who he is, and that's what will, kick off the show. But I don't think it's necessary. It's just a little extra.
It's not necessary from how they wrote it, but if they were writing, in my opinion, a better show, it would have worked, because of the fact that it's, you actually don't have to have it be about gender at all. It doesn't have to be about Hulk mansplaining like trauma to her. What it actually is Hulk talking about what he's gone through for the last 15 years. He's finally able to share it with somebody. Her cousin is like, probably for the first time ever, opening up about everything he went through as the Hulk. And so in reality, what that could have been is a nice kind of bonding moment where the two are able to learn from each other. But what they rather do, because they wanted to, one, make her seem like she was just better, but then also they were trying to put more of an emphasis on the fact that, she doesn't need like him explaining. But it's not like explaining something that he doesn't have any history with. He went through this for 15 years, and so he's finally able to just talk about it. So I would have much rather preferred, even if she was still like catching on quickly, I would have much rather preferred if it was a thing where they were kind of learning from each other. And even when she has this moment, like, it's cool, it's a cool moment where she's just like, hey dude, you have trauma, and she goes in on him, but then they don't do anything with it. They don't like take it further. We're just like, hey, let's talk. Like, you clearly went through some stuff, and yeah, I'm not going through the same thing, but let's talk about you and the fact that you went through this. So like, that really, really frustrated me, because I saw the potential, because there's like some really nice moments that could have like grown in there, but for two reasons. One, because they were trying to rush the first episode to get like just away from Bruce Banner as quickly as possible, but two, because of the fact that they wanted to make her just seem like she didn't need him at all. And then, yeah, you're right, if that's how they want to go with, if that's what they want to go with for the story, then he didn't need to be there at all, and she could have just dealt with it all on her own.
Yeah, and like I get why they wouldn't have wanted to go into talking about him too much, unless it was like a brief, like, this is what you can expect, and I hope you don't go through this, but this is what I went through, and if you ever need anything from me,
Yeah.
something like that. But
I could agree with that. Yeah.
yeah, but it just kind of felt a little bit like she was being kind of a brat by being like, I don't need you, I don't need you, I don't need you. Like, we're different people, leave me alone. Like, I get it. But, I mean, if you're really hearing him, he's saying, like, I'm jealous, like, that you are just getting this. And I would be too. Like, she's not being very sensitive to him. And I get her explanation of being, like, the reason why, like, she's so good at it is because she already knows how to control her anger because of just being a woman and having to deal with all this like woman stuff. Like, I get it. I thought that was really powerful, but I wish they treated it in a different way, because it just made her seem like she was essentially saying, because I'm a woman, I'm better than you. And I don't like that, because that's not why we're better than you.
Oh, wow. Well played.
But yeah.
No, but you're right, and like what Playmat was just saying in the chat, that not that mansplaining isn't an actual issue, but it felt like they wanted to force that narrative into the episode, and it just kind of felt awkward, because yeah, she's a woman and she goes through all these things, but not every woman would be able to just control their anger. So like, and that's the thing because women are people just like everyone else. So that means you'd have women that could control their anger and you have women that can't control their anger. So I want to see what else about her being Jennifer Walters that makes it so that she has learned how to control her anger on her own that goes beyond just the bounds of her gender, because that's not something that can you can apply to the entire gender. You can never do that with anything.
Yeah,
So
and I do kind of I think the thing that I really am missing here about an origin story is just her figuring out how to live with herself now that she has, a new persona. Kind of like how many different Spider-Mans do we have? And they all go
hmm
through in their own way. This curiosity and development of like, oh, I can do this, or like, oh, I can do this, and stuff like that. And we don't really get that. We definitely got it from Bruce several times in all his
right.
movies, but like now we finally have a chance for this, lesser known hero, and all we get is, oh, she just knows how to do it. That's all you
Right.
need to know. Now
It's a
let's go
shortcut.
have a, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I think that's what it just comes down to. Like one of the main issues that it comes down to for me is just that it's rushed. I think a lot of the problems that we're talking about comes from a show trying to rush past the origin and get to the like I said, they want to get to the thing that they prefer the show to be about. Even the character herself, I think, says that. Where like after the origin, she says, "Remember, this is a lawyer show," as in, don't forget this is about being a lawyer. So we did all that other stuff because we had to, but at the end of the day, it's a lawyer show. So don't get upset. And it's like, okay, but you can still have a lawyer show that is still interesting with these other elements. It's not like it's gonna hurt. It's not gonna hurt your story. Um,
I
so
mean, they
yeah,
could have also spaced out the origin story where we
that
get
too.
important moments to explain particular abilities or reasons behind her decision making. So
hmm
there's a lot of different ways you can stretch out an origin story while still getting to do something that you want to do on the
Right.
regular. So
Yeah, and I think that there's gonna be a part of the show that has to deal with that alien spaceship. It'd feel weird if they don't go back to that, the alien spaceship that they got into the car crash for
I forgot about
initially.
that.
Yeah, like that's the whole reason they got into the car crash. So I'm sure that that's gonna come back at some point. It kind of has to. But I will say, so we've talked about a lot of the things that kind of frustrated me about this first episode. But one of the things that I did like, there's two things that I liked. Like there are moments where you see Bruce and Jennifer like interacting that feel like they're family. And I like that because obviously we haven't seen her before in the past, so they need to get us to buy the fact that they're cousins. And I know how I am with my cousin, and my way I am with my cousin is almost like we're siblings and not just cousins. And there are points where I almost got that kind of feeling in certain moments with the two of them. So I liked that. And the other thing I liked was the argument that Captain America is a virgin, because that was actually funny. That legitimately
Yes.
made me laugh. And I thought about it. I was like, wait a second. She's right. Because this, that, and then he was frozen, and then this, and it's like, and there was nobody else. Oh my gosh. Cap died a virgin. No! Or at least Cap was a virgin until he went back into the past and like all that stuff. But yes, like I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, I also thought it was funny how like she kind of low key has a crush on him, and
hmm
and I thought it was really funny when they destroyed the bar, and he was like, "No, my
My fault.
bar! You're helping me fix it."
Yes.
That was good. That was very cousinly.
Yeah. So like, and I like that a lot. And there's also a nice little moment where I mean, it's unfortunate that it's like just it literally is them telling us and not showing us, but hearing about the relationship, more about the relationship between Tony and Bruce was also kind of nice. Like nice little icing on that they hung out and built this bar together and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, that's also pretty cool. But yeah, it was funny at the end where it ends like they were saying in the after credit sequence where he was just where she just literally is like, yes, Captain America, and then they cut it off before she can finish. He says it, and like that made me laugh so hard that I almost forgot all my other issues with the episode.
Yeah, there's some good stuff in it, but like I think because we were so focused on that origin story, it was a little hard to like get through. And I think I'll probably watch a little more just to see like how
What the show's actually about.
yeah, what is it? What is it actually gonna be like? Or is it really just gonna be like this bad all the time? Or are they really just trying to get it's weird to kick off your show with something like that, right? Like you want, I feel like you want to kick off your show with something that will make people want to watch your show, but it's really just
Right.
like a prequel to your show.
Oh, you
So,
know, that's really true. Like you can watch the first episode of She-Hulk and by the end of the episode not know what the show's going to be about.
yeah,
Like we're theorizing based off of our past experiences, but from a standpoint of just being a casual viewer that knows nothing about like, film or like doesn't really think about stories like that, and you just watch this first episode, you're like, "Okay, so what's happening in this
show?
show?"
Is the next episode gonna be like courtroom stuff? I don't know. I mean, I really don't know.
I mean, yeah, I don't either.
I'm actually kind of wanting to watch it just because I want to know what it's actually gonna be about.
Well, and what it sounds like is that the second episode is the real first episode.
Yes. Yes.
So,
Yeah. I mean, the other thing that was really bothering me was the CGI. I thought the CGI.
oh my God,
was
yeah, we
so
have to talk
bad.
about that. Yes,
Why is
there's
it so
some.
bad?
I
I don't know why they like. Well, I don't think they if they were gonna make her like that anyway. I feel like they could have just painted her face and done some like light
you want the Lou
light.
Ferrigno Hulk. You want that old Lou Ferrigno painted green Hulk
Sure.
just with
I mean,
Jennifer Walters.
they could have done like a little bit of like computer painting, but like the way they just I don't know it was so bad. Like hers wasn't as bad as his was awful. I was like I hear Mark Ruffalo acting, but I can't see it because the CGI is just not getting his emotes correct, and
Yeah.
it just felt so off and so weird.
And it's so strange because obviously we've seen this version of the Hulk in a movie, right? So we know what he can look like when done with good CGI. And so when you're watching it here, I mean, I'm like, yo, if you're gonna I mean, and that's probably why we won't see Mark Ruffalo come back for a while. If maybe he'll come back at the end of the series, but like, it feels like if you're going to do a show where you need to have your main character be basically computer generated for the majority of the show, you got to have the budget to put down on it, and like I'm sorry, but if they're not gonna give Obi-Wan the money to like have good CGI, then I'm sorry, but your She-Hulk show is definitely not getting that budget.
Yeah, no, I couldn't stomach it. It was bothering me so much. I had to pause it, I like looked at my boyfriend. I was like, "Is this CGI bothering you?" And he was like, yeah, it's not great, but it's not bothering me." And I was like, "It's bothering me like really, really badly." And usually, like bad CGI doesn't bother me that much, but I think when you're putting it on the face of like one of the major characters in an episode, like he's basically the only other character besides the main character.
Yep.
So it's like, I don't know, man.
Maybe
Maybe not have this episode.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe we don't have this episode because it sounds like it was too expensive for you guys to have not one but two CGI characters. But since he's not in the rest of it, maybe the CGI will get better in future episodes because they could put all their money to one character as opposed to two.
Historically, they usually do the best CGI at the beginning, and then it starts to get worse and worse and worse because you're invested in the story, and the CGI doesn't matter as much anymore. Historically,
You're probably right about that.
so I can't wait to see how much worse it can get.
Oh my gosh. Well, Yeah, we will see. We have to watch the second episode, and we'll see if like it's not even like we want to watch the second episode because we just like can't wait. We got to watch the second episode because we just got to see what this show's gonna
Where's
be
this
about.
going?
Where's this going? Does
What is
like
the
I
show?
what is this show, and is the CGI actually going to improve? According to Cheryl, it's not.
Right.
So
Yeah, because in all honesty, I don't feel like this is actually the first episode of the show. Like I said,
Yeah.
it just seems like a prequel to the show. So
right.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean that's everything from me. Any other like lingering thoughts you had to get out about this show?
uh, not really. I mean, it wasn't that bad. I just had problems with it. But I mean, that's pretty much it. It's not like
Yes.
I didn't have a good time, but I also had a bad time. So
That's why it's on. It wasn't that good.
yeah,
And to be fair, yes, like I think we can both say that. Like I think both of us were expecting a train wreck based off the trailers. We didn't expect something that was watchable at all. And we talked to here today about a lot of the stuff that we don't like or we didn't like. But like we said, there are enjoyable parts in it. And I absolutely do not think that it's awful, but I think that the parts that we didn't like were strong enough that we had to talk about them, and I think that that makes it go on this show. It wasn't that good, as opposed to us just normally saying like it'd be an open discussion about it, because there were just more things that we just did not like. But I think both of us can see the possible potential. It'll just be about however they handle this second episode onward.
yeah. I mean, I like lawyer shows, and I've watched a lot of lawyer shows and like courtroom shows in the past. They're actually really interesting. And I like superheroes shows, so I don't know what it's gonna be, but it sounds like it could be something that I like. I just really don't know yet.
Yeah, and I know that a certain character is going to pop up at some point during this. No spoilers in the chat for Cheryl because I don't think she remembers. But I'm mainly watching to see if this character shows up and how they handle it.
I literally don't know anything about She-Hulk, so it'll be a spoiler for me.
Cool. So I'm glad.
But yeah, all good.
So you'll be surprised if you keep watching then.
Okay.
And that'll be good. I'll have to live through. I'll have to live vicariously through your experience. But that's what we thought about She-Hulk. What did you guys think about it? Have you seen it? Do you think that the CGI is going to get better? Do you think the CGI is not that bad? Did it not really bother you? How do you like the actress that's playing She-Hulk? How did you like the first episode? Is it enough to get you to come back and watch some more? What have you thought about it? Comment below. Let us know. And while you're down there, if you give us a like, share, and subscribe, you can hit this little button over here. It'll take you to our other videos where you can see other things that we've like talked about in the past. But even if you don't, though, I have been Chris, and this has been
Cheryl, and we'll see you all next time.